This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome, Bruchim Abam, to the 2025 Tafshin Pehei Yarchei Kallah here in Panama. Welcome. We're going to begin this morning with by learning from the Sefer of the Chida. As you know, the Chida is one of my favorites. Reb Chaim Yosef David Azulai. What's interesting is that the Chida has a number of svarim on hanhagos tovos, good practices, which one would think is somewhat the opposite of what you would have expected. The last person in the world who would be able to maintain hanhagos tovos, we're not just talking about the ikarim, we're not just speaking about the Irais or even the Rabbanan. Good practices would be the Chida. The Chida was always traveling. The Chida was on the road for a good 10 years of his life. First from 1753 to 1758, and then 1773 to 1778. By the way, just to hear those dates, you hear 1773 to 1778, that means during the year of the American Revolution, the Chida was on the road. Actually, you know where he was during the American Revolution? He was in Amsterdam. And the Chida wrote how the stock market in Amsterdam crashed because of the Americas, because of the American Revolution. So who even thinks of that, how the American Revolution affected the economy in Europe. Anyway, usually if you're on the road, it's hard to maintain hanhagos tovos. But of all people, the Chida was the one who preserved in two different svarim. He has a sefer Moira Be'etzba, and he has a sefer Tziporen Shamir. By the way, many of the svarim of the Chida are named after parts of the body. Moira Be'etzba is the finger. Tziporen Shamir is the fingernail. But most of the svarim of the Chida, you have Tzavarei Shalal, Pnei David. Most of the names of the svarim. What? Mar Sayin, very good. Lev David, right? Almost all the names of the svarim are parts of the body. Actually, there's something very interesting. The Noam Elimelech said about the Chida that until the Chida came to the world, there was a force of Tumah from Svarim Chitzonim. In other words, if somebody learned things other than Torah, it could influence you l'ra. And from the Chida and on, the Chida was able to take even outside knowledge and bring it into Kedusha. So from the Chida and on, the outside knowledge no longer has a negative effect on a person. But we could say the same thing, maybe until the Chida, anything you did outside of the Beis Medrash could influence you l'ra. But the Chida was able to bring all of his travels, wherever he went, he was able to be machnas it into Kedusha, so that even if you, so to speak, appreciate Hashem's creation, the Chida was able to make it that also is part of Kedusha. Anyway, I want to share with you the beginning of Sefer Tziporen Shamir. Last year we did Moira Be'etzba. I want to share with you about Tziporen Shamir. Most people never learned this, they never heard of it. Okay? But it's kedai, at least once in your life, to see this. Tziporen Shamir is a tefillah. It's a tefillah composed by the Chida. The tefillah was ordained to say every single day. I never met anybody, not only who says the tefillah, who heard of the tefillah. But I say, I don't know that you'll be able to say it every day, but you should say it at least once in your life. Okay? What is this tefillah about? It's predicated on the following principle. Mitzvos tzrichos kavana. Mitzvos tzrichos kavana. Now, what does that mean? Simply, it means, many are unaware. Let's say a woman goes, she lights the Shabbos candles, and but she forgot to think formally, I am being mekayim the mitzvah of halakas ner Shabbos. Does she get a mitzvah? No. We paskin mitzvos tzrichos kavana, which means that in order to fulfill a mitzvah, you need to have the formal thought you're doing a mitzvah. That's how we paskin. It's machlokes rishonim. We paskin in order to get a mitzvah, you have to formally think, I'm doing the mitzvah. Now it applies to any mitzvah. Tzitzis, tefillin, even Shmira Shabbos. You could go through the whole Shabbos. Technically, if you don't think I have kavana to mekayim the mitzvah of observing Shabbos, you don't get schar for keeping Shabbos. Mitzvah is tzrichas kavana. Okay, that's Now, there might be b'di'eveds, maybe if you don't, you'll be yotzei, because why else are you doing it? We're not talking about that today. Now we're going to talk about something very interesting. Do mitzvahs d'Rabbanan need kavana? Do mitzvahs d'Rabbanan need kavana? It's machlokes achronim. The Magen Avram says no. The Pri Megadim says yes. The Mishnah Berurah paskins like the Pri Megadim. Mitzvahs d'Rabbanan need kavana, which means Megillas Esther, Mishlayach Manos. You go to someone's house. You spent 5 hours putting together this beautiful Shalach Manos with all kinds of stuff that nobody would ever even look at, with like Laffy Taffies and other junk, and you give it to somebody, but you didn't think, I have kavana to mekayim the mitzvah of Mishlayach Manos. Do you get the mitzvah? Pri Megadim says no. Mitzvah is tzrichas kavana. That's how the Mishnah Berurah paskins. What about a minhag? Do minhagim tzrichim kavana? Or what about a halacha? What do I mean by halacha? Let's say, the Shulchan Aruch brings that when you get close to a shul, you should speed it up. You should run to the shul. Okay? So it doesn't mean it has to be a marathon, but as you approach a shul, you're supposed to speed it up. Do you need to be mechavein when you're mekayim that halacha? I have kavana to be mekayim the halacha of going faster to the shul. Or it's nageh every single halacha in Shulchan Aruch. Let's say I want to be mekayim the halacha. I'm putting on my talis before my tefillin. Do you need to have a formal kavana? Nobody discusses it. It's not brought. Nobody discusses whether halacha tzricha kavana. I have another question for you. There's certain mitzvahs d'oraisa that you're mekayim with thought. Avas Hashem, Yiras Hashem, mitzvahs tamidiyos. Do they need kavana? Poskim don't really discuss it. Comes a Chida, and the Chida wrote an entire sefer. I was shocked. The entire sefer is predicated on the idea that mitzvahs d'Rabbanan need kavana, that halacha needs kavana, that minhagim need kavana. And therefore the Chida composed the tefillah that you start off every day of your life by saying, going through all the things you're going to do that day, all the halachas you're going to fulfill. And you say, Yibban Hashem, I have kavana to mekayim the mitzvah of running to the shul. I have kavana to mekayim the mitzvah of Baruch Shamar. I have kavana to mekayim the mitzvah of Shiras Hayam. I have kavana to mekayim the mitzvah of Smichas Gula L'Tfila. I have kavana. Going through all the halachas you can observe that day in order to actually get credit for them. And the Chida says, you know how often you should say it? Only when you want to cash in. Only every day of your life. Once you're not living, you no longer have to say the tefillah. Also, Goyim don't have to say the tefillah. It's not so. People think it's very strict. Everyone has to say it. No, only if you're Jewish. Only Jewish people. Only if your mother is Jewish. So that's the inyan of the Sefer Tzipor and Shamir. And I'll leave it to you to go through some of these, but I just want to give you an example of small halachos that the Chida composed the tefillah so that. Okay, well, take a look in the beginning. Tzipor and Shamir. By the way, another interesting thing of the manner with which the Chida wrote is that almost all the words of the Chida are also a pun. They're poetic. So you could read it just for the halacha, but let's say Tzipor and Shamir, Roish Hatchila Yehuda L'Tfila. If we had the time, we could have a shir of what is the Chida saying, Roish Hatechila Yehuda L'Tfila. Okay, but that's like an introductory poem. L'das roiva poiskim mitzvot tzrichas kavana. According to most poiskim, you need to have kavana, you do a mitzvah. V'kama mitzvos mekayim ha'adam ba'boker. There are many mitzvahs a person fulfills in the morning. Ve'eno noisen al libay, and they don't even think about it. Al kein toiv loymar tefila zu achar Berachas HaTorah. Therefore, you should say this. It's good to say this tefillah after Berachas HaTorah. Also, v'gam yesh kama mitzvah she'en b'yadeinu l'kaimim. There are many mitzvahs we don't have the opportunity to fulfill. So, how do you ever get credit for? Did you ever do pidyon peter chamar? At the Agudah Yarchei Kallah, they always bring in a chamar. You know that? At the Agudah Yarchei Kallah, they always bring in a chamar. And Nassan said next year. And because Nassan wrote already that there's going to be Yarchei Kallah next year, because it says at the end of the schedule, see you at next year's Yarchei Kallah. I didn't write that. I never committed. And I don't even know if I'm coming next year. But I know that Nassan is organizing it.
I think it's got to be in Eretz Yisrael.
In Eretz Yisrael. And next year I heard that Nassan's going to arrange a chamar for a pidyon peder chamar. But most people never did pidyon peder chamar. So how do you get credit for it? You need to be makabel upon yourself that if you ever had the opportunity, you'd be mekayim the mitzvah. Okay, so he says, "V'tzarich lekabel lekayim kol taryag mitzvos, v'Hashem hatoiv berachamav yale olav kilukiyam." And Hashem, in His mercy, will consider it as if you fulfilled it. Okay. Therefore, look what it says. V'lachein huskaru b'tfilazu. This tefillah will include kol mitzvos d'oraisa u'drabanan u'minhagei tzadikim v'anfei mitzvos sheyuchal lekayim b'parak tfilas hashachar. Anything you could fulfill in the morning. V'kabolas kol mitzvos v'hi tefillah koileles meluketes mesudaros. It's a all-encompassing tefillah gathered and arranged umuvareres from the Rishonim. I told you about it in my earlier work, Mar Be'etzva. It's been published many times, but this is the most authentic version. Okay, so he starts off with a L'Shem Yichud, as it is known that even though the Rabbi Yehuda was opposed to the tefillah of L'Shem Yichud, the Chida says he disagrees with the Rabbi Yehuda. So he starts with L'Shem Yichud, for the sake of the unification of Hashem, b'dechilu u'rechimu, with fear and love and fear, to unify the Yud-K with the Vav-K, fine. Mitzvah number 1 is, amakabel, the mitzvah, to believe in Hashem. Now this is a chidush oyoim v'noira. You could just read this and you gloss over it. Do you need to have kavana to mekayim the mitzvah of emunah? In other words, ask a Jew, do you have emunah? Yeah, of course I have emunah. Is it a mitzvah to have emunah? Yeah. Do you get schar for having emunah? Says the Chida, you have to have kavana to be mekayim the mitzvah of emunah. If you don't have that formal kavana, you're not going to get schar for emunah. It's very nice you believe in Hashem, but you never had the formal kavana. I have kavana to mekayim the mitzvah of emunah. Now I asked many poskim recently, because this was a shocker to me. I thought that for a mitzvah that you're mekayim with kavana, you don't need kavana. You hear? I thought that a mitzvah that you do, not with action. If you do an act, then you need to think formally before that you want to fulfill the act. But if the entire mitzvah you're fulfilling with thought, I need to think before I have the thought? I asked Gedolei HaPoskim. I didn't tell them what the Chida said. No, they never heard of such a thing. Why should you have to think before you think? The Chida holds to be mekayim a mitzvah b'machshava, you also have to have kavana.
That's why you say more down the first thing wake up.
There you go. You need to be mechavein to mekayim the mitzvah of emunah. Then he brings am mekayim the mitzvah anoich Hashem lekecha, the mitzvah of yiras shamayim. You would think either you fear Hashem, you don't fear Hashem. I have to have kavana to mekayim the mitzvah of yiras Hashem. Chida says yeah. The Chida brings the mitzvah of avas Hashem. Okay, now in the Art Scroll Siddur, it says, focus on fulfilling the mitzvah of avas Hashem. So there, unknowingly, they're following what the Chida says to have a formal kavana when you're mekayim a mitzvah b'machshava. The Chida brings 10 things you need to remember every day. Now, if you look in the back of the Siddur, you'll have sheish zechiros. It is well known that the original sources of the zechiros are 10. What is there that's not normally added? The story of Bilam, the story of the man, and other important zechiros. Okay, another thing to be mekayim is there's a mitzvah to come early to the shul and to try to be from the first 10. There's a mitzvah to be from the Asar Rishonim. Many people, they vie to be from the Asar Rishonim. It's like, you're running to shul, you look in the shul, there are 9 people there. Should you hold the door open for the guy and let the guy chap the... What should you do? You're about to walk into the shul. You could hold the door open for the guy and let him be the 10th? Or should you walk in yourself? What should you do? Derech Eretz Kadma L'Torah, or do you say Chayecha Koidem? Or Chayecha Koidem? Good question. But do I need to have kavana to mekayim the inyan of Asar Rishonim? Chida says yes. You should be mechavein to mekayim the mitzvah of Asar Rishonim. Have kavana to mekayim the mitzvah of running to the shul.
So when you come into shul, you're the 10th, you got to think, I'm a kavana.
Have kavana to mekayim Asar Rishonim. Or you could be the 9th also. You could be the 1st. Okay, here's, last year, somebody asked, we said that when you come to shul, according to the Chida, there are 3 kavanas to have. One is Moira Mikdash, to fear the shul, to fear Misha Shoichein Boy, and something called Natilas Rishus. So it was asked, what's the source you need to be Noitel Rishus? You, so to speak, have to ask the Rebbeinu Shalom, do I have permission to come in? Here it is. The mitzvah of, when you come into a shul, you wait at the entrance, and you ask Rishus from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And you say the pasuk, V'ani broiv chastecha. That's an inyan that is so important, you need to be mechavein to be mekayim that inyan. When you walk into a shul, you bow a little bit. That's the mitzvah of hishtachava keneged the heichal. When you walk into a shul, you sit down for a moment. It's the mitzvah of yeshiva bebeis haknesses. By the way, where does it say that? Do you ever hear of a book called Shulchan Aruch? There's this book called Shulchan Aruch that, are you allowed to go into a shul to call your friend? No. So what do people do? People go in and they sit down, right? And the Ramah says, because sitting in a shul is also a mitzvah, shenemar ashrei yoshvei veisecha. But actually, that's not the best thing to do. The best thing to do is to say a pasuk. The Shulchan Aruch says, if you don't know a pasuk, then you sit down. So it's best not to advertise amaratzos and sit down. It's better to say the pasuk. But when you come to a shul, you sit down and you have kavana to mekayim the mitzvah of sitting in a beis haknesses. What about learning Torah? You could learn Torah 12 hours a day. And you could walk out without schar. Because you forgot to have kavana before you started learning to mekayim in the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. That's a good one. That's a good one to remember. That's a recommended kavana. To have kavana to mekayim the mitzvah of Talmud Torah.
Doesn't saying the Birchos HaTorah accomplish that?
Is that going to do it? You would think, right? No. It doesn't seem like it's going to do the job. It doesn't seem like it's going to do the job. Otherwise...
What?
You
got to think about Shemulis.
It's not clear that it's going to do the job. It's not clear that a bracha will allow you to be mekayim the inyan of mitzvah strichas kavana. Now, the Mishnah Berurah brings from the Chayei Adam that if you didn't have kavana, you'll be yotzei b'di'eved, because of course you're doing the mitzvah. Why else are you doing it? But that's only b'di'eved. L'chatchila, you need to have the formal kavana. L'chatchila, you need to have the formal kavana. I'm just bringing to your attention that this opens up a lot of very interesting avenues of avodas Hashem, because that means mitzvah strichas kavana are not only for d'oraisas, are not only for drabanans, they apply to even mitzvahs hatluya b'machshava, and they apply to inyanim. Amen. It's a mitzvah to answer amen. Do you have to have kavana to be mekayim the mitzvah of amen? Yes. Avada. Before you shake a lulav, you have to have kavana. But the chidush is, this is not even, would you say answering amen is a derabanan? It's not a derabanan, it's a halacha. I wouldn't have thought, and I never saw anywhere else, not in the Mishnah Berurah, not in any of the poskim, that there would even be a reason to be mechavin, to be mekayim halacha. What about the mitzvah of Birchas Kriyas Shema? What about the mitzvah of smichas gula l'tefillah? What about the mitzvah of answering kedusha? I mean, these are all things that we do every day, and the advantage of this tefillah is I want to just share with you one other thing. He says, take a look at the end of the 43 different mitzvahs that the Chida brings down. He says, "V'chol ha-mitzvahs hakluyos b'hem," all the mitzvahs that are encompassed in them. "V'nilvos imahem, v'ani mechavein b'chol ha-mitzvahs ha'ela." I have kavana in all these mitzvahs. V'chol ha-mitzvahs sha'asisi me'oidi. Any mitzvah I ever did. Now, that's another big chiddush, because we mean any mitzvah I ever did. What's the halacha if I shook a lulav yesterday and I forgot to have kavana? I could have kavana the next day. It's not going to help to have kavana the next day. But if I do have kavana the next day, it's something. So the Chida says, any mitzvah I ever did, I'm supplying kavana now. In other words, I could think right now, in Panama, that any mitzvah I ever did, any amen I ever answered, any smichas gula I ever fulfilled, I have kavana that it should be l'shem mitzvah, and that's also something. But then he adds, ve'eseh, and any mitzvah that I will do, kol yemei chayai. Now, why is that important? Because I'm not here today to tell you to say this tefillah every day. It's not brought in classic poskim that hanhagois toivois tzrichos kavana or halachos tzrichos kavana. But we see from the Chida that anything you do is elevated if you're mechavein. And if you can't do it every day, even if you do it once in your life, it's very valuable. So at least once in your life, you could say, okay, you take a Shulchan Aruch, you take a Mishnah Berurah, and you say, I have kavana right now that all the halachos that I'll ever fulfill, I want to do it l'shem mitzvah. And then you just upgraded your fulfillment of halacha from just fulfilling the halacha to this higher level. Okay, that's today's introduction. And I'm going to give you a little bit of... we're going to start with the hachana for the shiur.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.